Good afternoon, everybody. My name is SIBHI. I'm the County Superintendent of Schools, and it's really my pleasure to welcome you this afternoon. You know, working with NAMI as a partner with when it comes to serving our students and the many challenges that they're facing has been such a great pleasure for our student services team. We know we've learned from the pandemic how impactful and how difficult the pandemic has been on our student population in the area of mental health. And we've also learned how important schools are, and our school community is in creating the spaces that students need to be able to get the help that they need. We recently got updated information from our California Healthy Kids Survey data, and the numbers are of great concern. Looking at the numbers of students who are experiencing anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation has increased so much, and the need for our mental health and the mental well-being of our students has never been more important. Looking at that data, we see that 55% of students are experiencing feelings of hopelessness on a daily basis, 55%. And this is up by about 13% from 2 years earlier. And these numbers are even more pronounced for our LGBTQ youth and our youth of color. And it gives us pause, and it also makes us want to do something, makes us want to continue the effort, makes us want to reach out to our students and to support them and their families. And so what some of the efforts that the County Office of Education, working with great partners like NAMI, has been a part of is we received a mental health services grant that we've named as the companion project to be able to help young people navigate the system, the complexities of how to go from A to Z, making sure that we're shortening the distance for students who are in need of mental health resources and being able to overcome the obstacles that sometimes exist in getting those services. Whatever we do, we need to be thinking about the long term, though. These needs are a matter of life and death for many of our youth. They are not going to be going away when the funding goes away. And so we have to be thinking about sustainable solutions to be able to continue to wrap our students and their families with the support and that they deserve. This being Mental Health Awareness Month, I think is always a good reminder to be able to be thinking about how we can pool our resources to make sure that our schools are places of wellness, that our community is a part of supporting our students, and how we can partner with great organizations like NAMI to offer our students those safe spaces and the supports they deserve. So thank you so much for being a part of today's event, and we are so proud to be working with NAMI on serving our students and creating those safer spaces for them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ferris. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this important community discussion. My name is Amy Mangan, and I am the coordinator for the Companion Project with the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. I stand for dignity, compassion, and thriving for myself and others. The Companion Project is part of the grant that was just discussed. We have 4-year funding for 5 counselors in addition to myself that are working with students and families that would benefit from additional services beyond what the schools offer, specifically students and families that have not successfully engaged with recommended services despite prior attempts. The Companion Project will be providing safe, stable, nurturing relationships, including the navigation of behavioral health and substance use services. This program will be anchoring students and families until the appropriate services are obtained, with a genuinely warm handoff once those services are successfully in place. We launched at the end of March, and we provide services throughout the entire county. I'd like to take a moment to pause and acknowledge that it is the end of the school year, and despite the list of tasks and responsibilities that everybody here has before them, you made time to be here today so that you can be prepared by knowing the warning signs, you can protect by speaking up and offering resources, and you can preserve this effort and the relationships between families and students. I'd like to take a moment to ground us all in some national and statewide data to help frame today's conversation in addition to what Ferris shared. Nationally, a recent survey from the Trevor Project found that 45% of LGBTQ+ youth from across the US seriously considered suicide last year. That is almost 1 out of every 2 LGBTQ+ youth. 14% attempted suicide, and the rate was even higher among transgender and non-binary individuals. The bottom line is, there has been a marked increase in suicide risk for LGBTQ+ youth overall since the pandemic began that continues today. For the overall student population within our own state, over 500 students participated in the California Student Wellness Survey in 2021, and results showed that over 40% of these students said that no one personally asked about their mental wellness over the past 3 months. That is almost half of all youth. NAMI of Santa Cruz County's own surveys also support that statewide data, as evidenced by the fact that many students don't feel like they can identify a trusted adult to talk to about mental health. After participating in today's Ending the Silence program, you will have the knowledge of mental health conditions and understand the role of stigma in seeking help. You will know how to start the conversation with students and with families, and you will be connected with local resources. It is incredibly important that young people have the support of not only each other, but also the adults who they interact with on a daily basis, such as yourselves. It is my pleasure to introduce today's presenters. Local and the most active semi-retired educators I personally know, Les Forrester and Mary Gockel, are presenting on behalf of NAMI of Santa Cruz County, along with the Assistant Director of Training and Outreach at Suicide Prevention Services, Molly Taus.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Gockel Forster, and thank you. Yes, we're presenters, but first of all, we have been teachers and principals, parents, grandparents. Those are our most important titles. Often we have a gathering activity to warm us up or to bring us together. And Amy shared some data. I think that it's important not only to know the data, but to think of an individual. So I want you to take just a moment and I want you to picture a young person that you care about, or maybe that you're worried about. And then I want you to think about dedicating this next 90 minutes or so to that young person and to all young people that you may have an opportunity to prepare to protect and provide for. We've talked about both Ferris and Amy brought up that, yes, we're concerned about mental health and suicide. We all know that our young people are fragile. We know that the pandemic has even increased that fragility. I opened my news feed this morning and it said, we're entering a period of drought, and that studies show that drought increases depression, anxiety, and suicide. And I think, it's time. It's really time to be able to be prepared. And often we may feel helpless. And Sophia, if you could put the first slide up, please. And you will see that on each of our slides that we have a life ring, a life preserver. That today our goal is we want to prepare you to protect our youth, and we want to give you a life preserver to do that. We want you to take this image away that what you experience today can become a life preserver for young people. And that by participating, you will go away prepared with strategies and ideas of how to protect our youth beginning this summer when they go away from us. Some of us see our young people daily, and they will be gone from us over the summer. Others will have an opportunity through programs during the summer to be with young people. We will also be sending you away. What we're asking you to help us preserve this effort, that this be an ongoing effort for our young people, that it's not just 90 minutes today, that it begins and starts over the summer and it will continue into the school year and beyond. And we want you to help us with that to preserve. And finally, we want to provide you with self-care so that you have the resources and the energy to be able to care for our young people.
And I want to add my welcome also to all of you. It's really great to see all of the folks who are on board right now. And just to back up what Ferris and Amy and Mary have shared, to commemorate and honor this being Mental Health Awareness Month, just buy into the notion that like all of the other months that we honor and celebrate, mental health awareness and mental health recognition is not just confined to May. You have chosen to make and take the time this afternoon to be with us, and we really want to underscore the A that is in NAMI. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. An alliance is composed of allies, and that's all of us. And all of us today, I'm holding up my little prop. This is a tube of lifesavers. So think about that. Think about you being one. I know you are, just because of your commitment to youth in Santa Cruz County. But as we go forward in the slides, just keeping open-minded to what information you already know, what is going to be repeated today, and underscored as we go through this. Mary and I have done this presentation. This is the Ending the Silence for School Staff. We've done it a number of times, virtually and in person. This one we've modified and brought in expertise from suicide prevention services. So we're just going to tag team the slides in hopes that you walk away with increased knowledge and resources to help students now and with the upcoming summer vacation. Next slide, please.
So please take a moment. When we show slides, we're not going to read everything on the slide. These slides are to activate your thinking and to begin to open a place in you for awareness and look at the different ways mental health affects young people. And if you're familiar with Wordles, the bigger the print or the bolder the print, the more that shows an effect or an impact. Next slide, please.
And in an effort to help us have common language and decrease the stigma around the conversation respecting mental health, this is a sampling of mental health situations, conditions, diagnoses that you may have experienced yourself, within your families, certainly within the youth that you serve. Before we go further, I just want to underscore what Mary alluded to earlier. She and I are not psychologists, we're not diagnosticians. We come to this work for our years of working with and on behalf of youth, working with many of you. Also the fact that we recognize the importance of this conversation and how this conversation, some of the things and many more that you see on this slide, can manifest and impact how we serve youth in Santa Cruz County. Next slide, please. And one of the goals of this presentation, our experience we're sharing today, heavily revolves around knowing what the interventions are. If you suspect that there may be an emerging or a pronounced or developing mental health condition, knowing the warning signs, reaching out, responding. You can see at the very bottom, this life ring with each one of these, step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, there's an added color denoting which step that is. So we're gonna speak to all of these different steps throughout today's presentation. And again, keep in mind that this is a presentation that normally is delivered to school staff, administrators, support staff, classroom teachers, especially promoting the awareness of the intensity, duration, basically what you might be seeing and witnessing when it comes to working with youth. No surprise to any of you that school-age youth oftentimes spend more time during the day, certainly Monday through Friday, maybe during the week, in your proximity, under your care. So the more that we all are aware of how youth are presenting, the better we're able to respond, beginning with knowing what the warning signs are. Again, oftentimes we have a room full or a virtual room full of classroom teachers here. And these are things that can present. There are many others. These lists could go on and on. However, I always call out the one on the bottom right, because although this might be something you've seen at home, a youth is isolated, doesn't participate in social situations. Well, over the past 2 years during COVID, especially during school closure, every student was isolated. Students could not come to school. And what we're experiencing and hearing from many of you who are in this group right now is the difficulty, the challenges that are presenting when youth are coming back to school, not having been for several weeks, and how to relearn that the peer negotiations, the negotiations with the adults at school in their lives. It's bringing up all sorts of challenges that are unprecedented and heightening our own awareness and our own need to be further aware of what to do. How do we respond to that? And as we are approaching a couple more weeks of the school year, really, really imperative that we all are on board with this so that we can keep in mind, okay, these are resources that you, youth, need to know about over the summer.
And if you look, and if you think back to it, the prior slide, when it was talking about overtime and intensity, you're looking, if something changes, to be aware that there's a change and to be able to observe. You're not making a diagnosis, but be able to observe, maybe jot a little note. So if a student runs late a couple of times, you're able to jot that, but then it stops. But if it's something that it starts and you're a little bit surprised about it, and then you look back and you say, oh my goodness, the student's been late for 2 to 3 weeks, or there's a change, sits alone in the cafeteria, in the lunchroom, and never sat alone before. So being able to make those observations are really important. And we'll talk more about that later. Let's go to the next slide, please.
All right, I think this was my slide. So one of the reasons why it's so important for us at Suicide Prevention to go out into schools and other parts of the community to talk with people about suicide and mental health issues is the large impact that it has. Many people have suicidal thoughts at some point in their life, and though most people don't go on to die by suicide, currently it is the second leading cause of death for young adults and young people. We know that some groups are seeing rising rates in suicide. And because this is an issue that impacts all of us, that really means that it's kind of up to all of us to be prepared so we can deal with these issues and really start changing the conversations we have around mental health and suicide from something that's been historically stigmatized and feared and just not talked about to something that's more open and safe. So we can prepare by learning the warning signs, knowing when someone is struggling. We can learn how to support someone, knowing that it's okay to ask about suicide. Can prepare by learning resources and knowing, again, that it's okay to reach out to places like a crisis line to talk about suicide and get support. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done here and a lot going on already to support our community and help prepare. So we're going to go to the next slide, please. I do want to address the elephant in the room and just talk about some common attitudes held around suicide. And we're just going to take a look at a couple of them. So the first is, I think people say they're suicidal just to get attention. We hear this a lot. And the way that we really try to think through this is that person may need attention. They may be feeling really alone, really isolated, feeling like nobody cares, or maybe not having someone that really support them. One of the common warning signs for people thinking about suicide is kind of alluding to suicide in a less obvious way. So maybe joking about it, maybe acting out in some way that seems attention seeking. it's a really scary issue. It's really scary to be the one to bring up that you're feeling so low that you're feeling actually suicidal. So it can be it's really important for us at Suicide Prevention to share that we always take people seriously on our hotline and really try to give that attention and care to the person that may be really needing it. The second one that I want to point out is talking about suicide with someone who is sad will only make it worse or give them the idea. And again, a lot of fear around bringing up suicide in conversation. I think there's fear around not wanting to give someone the idea, not knowing what to say, or being afraid to say the wrong thing. And so we say nothing at all. There's a lot of research in the field of suicidology proving that talking about suicide is not going to make someone more suicidal or plant the seeds. It's one of the reasons why call centers work and talking works. The very best way that we've identified for someone with thoughts of suicide to not take action on those thoughts is to give them a safe and supportive space to be able to express those thoughts. Because what can happen during that process for a lot of people is they get a chance to realize that they don't actually want to die. They just don't want to feel this way anymore. And that can kind of help, talking through it can kind of help that person realize that they may have more options. So again, that's really why we try to message it's okay to ask directly, it's okay to talk about suicide, and it's okay to kind of bring it up, take that burden off, open up that space for that person to share. The last thing that I want to mention here is it can be really helpful to take some time and examine your own beliefs around suicide and mental health, and really kind of think through how those attitudes and how your own beliefs might impact your ability to help someone or possibly get help for yourself. So we're going to go to the next slide. I think I'm going to pass the torch.
Take a look at that life preserver and look at what might be some of the potential risk factors. And look at the list from the traumatic life experiences. So being able to have conversations, and so ending the silence doesn't happen just if you think a person has maybe a mental health illness or challenge or thinking of suicide. Being able to talk and have relationship before that so that you know if maybe they're going through a divorce or have lost a parent, looking at possible symptoms of mental health. And the one that really stood out to me is the connection between bullying and suicide. And this is really important to understand. You know, thinking that bullying hurts feelings, diminishes self-worth. There is a direct connection that being bullied can increase. It can be a risk factor for suicide.
Before we move on, I just want to also point out to that last one, thank you, Sophia, is that especially with the bottom 3 bullets on this side, how these have magnified, amplified, increased during COVID. Calls for service to homes around domestic violence, bullying, which has maybe changed, I guess I'll use that word, changed the options and delivery models. While many students were home alone, not at school, the capacity for their involvement with virtual conversations, social media, raised the possibility of bullying, cyberbullying. Again, something that those of you who work with youth on a regular basis, this will not surprise you at all, but the data is really bearing it out, what these impacts of COVID have had and are having and will have probably for years on many students.
Next slide, please. Okay. Here's some warning signs of suicide. And teachers have an incredible, powerful opportunity, or parents in the home, or you are working in a nonprofit organization and you're leading an art project, that sometimes what you may see in doodling is important to ask about. And that often as a teacher, we might say, oh, quit your doodling and pay attention. Doodling is a form of communication. Sometimes it's a way people learn. Sometimes it's a way that people express feelings, and young people. And so being able to pay attention and to ask about that, it ends the silence. It forms relationship. You're using your life preserver. Listening to how does that student talk about themselves? And the last one, losing interest in things they care about, a change in hygiene, not sitting with friends. We've seen it in little ones where all of a sudden they give away all their treasured toys. I mean, this is not where we think of just teenagers. This is through many different ages and stages, and being able to take a look and be aware of those warning signs, to be able to make an observation about that, be able to reach out and share that information is really important. Next slide.
I think those are the last two slides are really great. I just have this other a few more warning signs to be aware of, and I just have a couple things to say about warning signs before we move on. The first is trust your gut. Not everyone shows warning signs. Not everyone is going to show warning signs that we've had on these slides. So really paying attention and noticing if something is feeling off, something feels not quite right, go ahead and ask about it. Pay attention. And then the second thing is about warning signs is kids know each other in ways that adults do not. So I think it's really important to pass these warning signs on to kids so they know what to look for, they know what the warning signs are, and messaging that it's okay for them to ask about suicide and to connect the person they're worried about to a trusted adult. So just want to add those, and then we can move on to the next slide.
And before we show this video, I want to thank the people at Directing Change, an annual statewide contest to enlist youth, middle school and high school to create videos calling out the need to destigmatize the conversation around mental health, knowing the signs, being a friend, suicide awareness. This happens every year. If you work at a school, you ought to know about the Directing Change contest every year.
Suicide takes the lives of nearly 30,000 Americans a year. Suicide can be prevented through education and public awareness. Never underestimate the power of your actions. Be a friend, save a life.
Again, I want to thank the folks at Directing Change. Inviting students, student voice, student conversation into the conversation around mental health awareness, around suicide awareness is absolutely vital and fundamental. Providing them with a safe venue to talk about this, their concerns, their worries, what they know, what they think they might know is absolutely critical. Just want to make sure that keeps going. Reach out and respond. If you believe someone is considering suicide, and at this point, I always like to point out that mental health conditions don't automatically equate with being at risk of suicide. It's not every person who has a mental health concern who is going to be considering suicide. However, this all plays into the necessity of our awareness about signs and symbols and how to respond. And in this case, being okay with the absolute necessity that sometimes you have to ask them right up front, are you thinking about suicide? This is not a phrase or a conversation. You need to find other words to replace the word suicide. It's very frank. It might be tough for you to say, but it's vital in the moment and will establish a conversation. And furthermore, let this person, this student, know that you see them, you recognize them and whatever struggles they might be going through. And again, these are things that are the lower bullets might be more appropriate for a school conversation. Over summertime, there might not be a school mental health contact unless it's summer school. but also the importance of sharing the conversation that you had with the youth, who's going to contact the people or the person who might be in their life about keeping the conversation going and sharing what you've seen. Getting back to something Mary shared earlier on a prior slide, the importance of taking notes, being able to provide a chronology with facts that you've experienced, that you've seen, talking to your peers, if they share this child in a class, for example, so that when you go to a family member or a mental health care provider, you have something solid and factual to report to them, not just your suspicions or anecdotal evidence.
And one thing that we always share is, and was a big learning for me, is that when you're asking the question, are you thinking about suicide? Often as adults, we want, out of care and love, we say, you're not thinking of suicide, are you? And so we're already shutting down the conversation because it gives the message, well, this is too painful for me to hear, or I don't want to think about you thinking about suicide. And it closes off the conversation. So as you're talking to a young person, practice using the open-ended questions that are not giving the answer, are not sending a message about, oh, this is what I want to hear as the adult or the other person. This is what I want to hear. I also want to direct your attention to make sure you're looking at the bottom of each slide as our life preserver fills in, because these are with our symbol of a life preserver and the words that we're choosing to prepare, protect, preserve, and provide are very carefully chosen. And these will become your life ring. And this is reaching out and responding is part of the way we protect our young people.
Next one, please.
So thinking about starting this conversation, thinking about kind of the best things to do or say, some things to avoid. I'm gonna, on the next slide, I'm gonna give you just a few more tips about having these conversations. I do want to just acknowledge that talking with someone about suicide is scary, and it can bring up a lot of feelings for ourselves. So staying calm, taking a breath, maybe a couple, can be really helpful. You know, your heart may be racing, but having a calm, confident, and caring tone of your voice can really help to ground a person when you're starting that conversation. It can also help build trust. So kind of paying attention to the tone of your voice and your own kind of internal, how you're feeling. Being open and direct. If you're worried that suicide might be on someone's mind, it's a really important, as Mary said, you know, asking directly, are you feeling suicidal? Can kind of message that, you know, that you really want to hear the answer. It's an important question, and you're going to be there to listen. So again, asking someone directly, and because it's such an important question, really taking the time to listen and hearing that answer. So slowing down the conversation, listening without judgment, asking some open-ended questions. You know, how are you feeling? How long have you been feeling this way? You know, do you have a plan? Can you talk to me about that? And then finally, kind of using really small, really doable steps to promote safety. So this is not the time to create a 5-year plan or fix every possible problem that might be going on for this person. It's really just, what is one thing you can think of to take care of yourself today? What is one thing that would be helpful for you right now? So this is just some examples. These are questions that we ask every person when they call our hotline, and they're just kind of good examples of direct questions around the issue of suicide. So, and then again, in noting on the bottom part of the slide that, again, these are really serious questions, and we want to pair them with a lot of active listening, a lot of patience, a lot of care. So let's go to the next slide.
Again, continuing the conversation and the kind of the progression of responses, reaching out, share, listen, focus, ask. I always like to call it number 2 on this one too, because a lot of youth are not accustomed to an adult actually taking the time and making the space to honor quiet if it needs to be quiet, and to listen to what's on their mind and what's in their heart, and giving them that latitude. We've always found that it takes time. Sometimes some trust and active listening skills have to be developed, but usually they will open up and kind of spill their guts, share what's on their minds and in their hearts. Obviously, a place to be understanding and non-judgmental, because this is a tough conversation, and it's a place where you want to be at your best self to be able to support them in what may be a really, really fragile time for them and for you. Important to acknowledge that part as well.
And although that we are using a lens or a focus on suicide, that these strategies and approaches are important for all mental health concerns and conditions, and opening up the conversation and breaking down those walls of stigma and silence. Next slide.
Button. All right, so just a note on self-care and compassion fatigue. As we've mentioned, these conversations are hard. It's really difficult. And it's really, because of that, it's really important for us to check in with ourselves. So just some reminders here on self-care. Know that it's okay to reach out and get support for yourself. Thinking about your own boundaries and parameters, what you can and cannot do. Remember that you don't have to do all the things all the time. You don't have to do them alone. And then after these conversations, really doubling down on that practice self-care and working to kind of let go of a particular interaction. So some of the questions that I ask myself after I have a really heavy conversation with someone about, if they're feeling suicidal, some of the things I ask myself is, was I present? Did I listen? And to the best of my ability, is this person safe right now? And if I can answer yes to all three of those, I take a breath and let it go. And if I can't, I know to reach out and talk to someone, one of my staff members or someone I know, because again, I think the importance of networking and reaching out, so we're as helpers not isolated as well. So we're gonna go to the next slide. Mary, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. This video helps us see the difference as caring and compassionate and loving people that have chosen to work with youth and they're in our lives. There's a difference between empathy and sympathy. And as you can see here, empathy is the doorway to understanding what's going on. To my surprise, sympathy divides, it ends connection. And this little video will be a great demonstration of that.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, You want a sandwich? Um, Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So I'm always totally aware. The minute I say "at least," I check myself. And where is that coming from? And is it going to foster connection, or is it going to create a divide? So I pretty much have eliminated that from my vocabulary, and it has shifted my thinking. And I'm hoping that I'm increasing relationship. We've come to the time now where we need you to all be lifeguards. We want you to help create the lifesaver, the life preserver. And for this first breakout room, we want you to think about, how do we prepare to protect our youth during the summer? That when they go away from us or they come to us, that we are ready, we are prepared to protect them. So you will be in breakout rooms with 5 or 6 other people, and we want you to brainstorm answers to this question, and we would like you to collect the answers on a Jamboard. So for example, I might say, let's say I'm a counselor. I might say, I'm willing to check my email during the summer every other day in case students want to share or reach out. And please put that on the website, that you can reach Ms. Cockle on her website during the summer. But we want you to be as creative as you can and think as many strategies. We're hoping with the people that are attending that we can create these rich Jamboards that we're going to share back with you. So every Jamboard, every suggestion on a Jamboard will be collated and grouped together, and we will send it back out to you, because we want you to have a life preserver through the summer. If you haven't used Jamboards, when you go to the site, you will you'll be invited to go to your chat room, and there will be a Jamboard, and you will see, as you see on the slide here, a little icon that means a sticky note. If you click on that, you will be adding a sticky note. You'll see a sticky note show up, and you can put your idea on that. And then when you're done, you can add another one. And we want you to keep going until your whole Jamboard is filled. It would be wonderful to come back and be able to debrief all these ideas with each other. But again, we know you're 2 to 3 weeks before the end of the school. You're a few minutes away, from 5 o'clock. So we want to give you this opportunity and know that you're going to get the results of everybody's ability to be prepared to protect our young people. So they're going to do magic and send us into the breakout rooms. You're going to have approximately 10 minutes, and we're going to come back and be ready to continue to create our life preserver. all to hang in. I know that the last few minutes, sometimes with breakout rooms, we see the numbers of people reduce quickly. And yes, we will be sharing with you, but what we need is every one of you here with those good ideas, and everyone we lose is possibly a good idea. So please hang in, please. We've got 2 more breakout rooms and a powerful little video coming right up right now.
Hey, it's good to see you. I wanted to talk to you. I feel like you've been distant from me, like you've been avoiding me. You also haven't been at track practice in a while. You love track. Your sister also told me that you're starting to fail some of your classes. You're a straight A student. This isn't you. What's going on? No, it's something. Are you thinking of suicide? Hey, look at me. It's okay. I'm here for you. You know, you can always talk to me, right? You're not alone. Call the hotline. We're together. You'll be okay. I promise. Hello?
I know that the streaming might have been a little bit choppy, but to think about a young person being able to convey the message of openness and listening, I thought that it was very excellent and very intuitively made. Next slide. Okay, as we look, we're going to look at how do we preserve this effort. So we've got this life saver, we're preparing, and we're going to protect our students. And we've talked about that during the summer. But we don't want it to end then. Too many good and important initiatives end. Maybe after the workshop or after a few months. This work is never done. It cannot end. And so our next breakout room, we want to talk about what can we do when we come back from the summer to preserve this effort. Maybe it's from a teacher perspective. Maybe it's from a student perspective. I'm going to throw out one idea that's very important to my husband and I and our hearts, is that there are clubs on campus, Ending the Silence clubs, that students might start where peer-to-peer can talk to each other. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to give you the answers. What I want are the answers and suggestions and strategies from you. So we're going to have the same, we're going to go into breakout rooms again, Jamboard. Please be thinking, is it once a month? Is it a small group? What can you think that we can do with this energy and these good people that have joined us today? Over 80 people. What can we do to make sure that this initiative is fully resourced with all the energy it needs to protect and preserve our young people?
And if you're affiliated at a school that would be interested in having a NAMI on campus club, make sure you reach out to Sophia or to Mary or me after the fact. One of the goals of the local NAMI Santa Cruz County is to establish some of those in the county starting in the fall.
Okay, we're sending you to breakout rooms, and we know you're going to help us make a strong life preserver.
And we're back. Thanks to everybody for hanging in there. I know it prolongs the afternoon, but there's not a more urgent or important conversation that we all could be having. So now we're going to get into the heart of the matter, promoting further awareness about what resources and support are available in the community in Santa Cruz County.
All right, so one of the resources that I'd like you all to know about is the suicide crisis line. So just a couple, this is your local line. We serve Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Benito counties. We're taking calls 24 hours a day. It's free, it's confidential. And you don't actually have to be suicidal to call. So you can, if you just need to talk with somebody. So it's one of the things I really try to message when we go into to school groups. What will happen if you call this line is a responder will answer the phone. They've all been trained on how to listen, how to support someone in crisis, and how to keep someone safe. They will ask some safety questions, including if you're feeling suicidal. And if you're calling for someone else, they'll ask those safety questions of both people and come up with be able to kind of work with you to come up with a plan of next steps in keeping that person safe. So we're going to go to the next slide. Someone just asked about 988. So there's two numbers that you can reach our crisis line. There's the local number, and then we're also part of the national lifeline. So that 1-800-273-8255, very long number, is actually going to a 3-digit code in July. It's going to change to 988. It actually works right now, but that's something that we're kind of preparing for. So that's some things to know. Also, just to highlight a few other resources for you all. We're not the only crisis line. For those who prefer to have these conversations over text and chat, the crisis text line, texting hello to 741-741, or going on the website and accessing the chat. One last resource that I want to point out is the Trevor Project, which is a 24/7 confidential suicide hotline for LGBTQ youth. All three of these websites are just a treasure trove of information. So definitely encourage you to check it out. So let's go to the next slide. And these are just some local resources for you all, Santa Cruz and Monterey County Behavioral Health. The California Know the Signs campaign, really great website, lots of information, and 211. So let's go to the next one. And unless you're muted.
And no longer muted. Thank you for pointing that out. Thanks, Molly. In terms of resources, there are many, many that are available in town, in the county, in the region area, but truthfully, we all are the best resources available. After this is done, you will have hopefully increased awareness about how to share those with youth and with families. This is, again, coming toward the end of the Silence for School staff slides. Yeah, if you were at a school, when you were at a school, find out who those resources are. You may be affiliated with a summer school program. Hopefully some of these resources will be on site during the school day there. Connect with other community organizations. That's part of this very much. A lot of great community folks represented here. And again, all of these slides, what you've just seen, this one, there's information that's going to be in the QR code you will see very soon. Cannot speak enough about NAMI Santa Cruz County, all the help that they provide to people of all ages, to schools, more and more representation in South County in Spanish language available. So the goal being just to blanket our community with awareness about what to do when you've got a concern. If you're a family member of somebody who's struggling with a mental health situation, there's a lot available. The key is to know how to spread this information with folks that you come in contact with.
And here is your complete life preserver. All complete. It has a QR code. If you know how to do that, being able to hold your phone up, it will open up a bank of all the resources that we've shared with you today, and you'll always have it in that one place. So if you could go ahead and take a snapshot of it now. It will be on our recording. It will be on NAMI website. We're going to have it on the Santa Cruz County Office of Education website. It's here to be shared with schools so they can put it on their website, wanting to try to make it one-stop shopping, remove any barrier we can from getting the information out to end the silence to preserve and protect our young people.
I want to give special thanks to Sophia, who's kind of got her hands on the levers here today for creating this. It is absolutely a terrific resource. You're probably not going to share this whole slide deck with the youth you're in contact with, but you can share this with them. They could keep this on their phone and have it at the ready should the occasion arise over summer or any time when they need some help for themselves or for somebody else. Recently, I put Mary's and my email in the chat. If anybody wants to get a hold of us after we're done here, we're almost there. Please don't be shy about doing that.
And we will be including Youth Voice, and we will be asking them what kind of a symbol. It may be this life preserver, but we envision having a symbol that would indicate somebody that provides a safe space around mental health, mental illness, around suicide, that there's that instead of guessing, that there is an actual visual. It might be the life preserver, but we really want it to speak to the young people. But for now, this life preserver, we hope you take this away, and this is your image as you go through the next few weeks and through the summer until we can be back together again.
Okay, so we're kind of wrapping up. I think we have one more breakout room, and it's going to have to do with self-care. So kind of thinking about what you do for self-care now, what you might do after this presentation. And there's some words in this slide to kind of activate that thinking. Let's go to the next slide. And Mary, am I introducing this or are you?
Or we both can.
We both can.
Go ahead.
So the last breakout room, again, we're kind of thinking about how we provide for our own self-care. Really, really important. If we're going to be helpers, we got to use that oxygen mask for ourselves. So in the last breakout room, just thinking kind of, self-care, how we take care of ourselves as providers, and so we can kind of, refresh, rejuvenate, and continue to do this work.
And please, this is the time, have fun with this. We know some of the breathing techniques, and please put those down. But tell us truly what's something fun that you can do. Please be playful for this, be fun. We really want to be able to have this be rejuvenating. And Sophia, if it's possible, let's make this really quick and put the pressure on and make it a 5-minute breakout room.
Great. In closing today, I would like to thank everyone for joining us. In addition to our presenters, Les Forster and Mary Gockel on behalf of NAMI of Santa Cruz County and Molly Taus on behalf of Suicide Prevention Services. I invite you to join me today in increasing the amount of adults that ask students about their mental well-being and health. I invite you to join me today in decreasing the amount of LGBTQ+ youth and BIPOC youth that seriously consider suicide. I invite you to join me today in taking action all year long on supporting the mental health and well-being of the youth in our county. In addition, please keep your eyes out for an email from us that will include resources and Jamboard results. And also know we look forward to continuing these efforts with many of you in the fall. Thank you so much for your willingness and your commitment to be prepared, to protect, and to preserve the young people in our community.
Thanks, everybody.